Hey guys, welcome to Cricket Fanatics magazine. This is your weekly podcast, Sunday podcast, as you can see. And we're going to be talking about major talking points that happened this last past week. And I have Makao with me again, Mpho with me. Very excited about this one, of course. But also, it's going to be a very different conversation that we're going to be having. We had a massive request for this from the fans. I think every single video that I did this week, there was a comment on it saying, "Why am I not talking about this?" So I needed to dedicate it. I couldn't do it in my daily show. My daily shows are normally like 15 max. I don't try to go about 15 minutes for my daily shows. So I needed a time to have a chat with you, I think, and we're also going to bring some other guests, if possible, later on the show to discuss this. But I thought that it was a topic that needed to be discussed. And no one better to discuss it than with you, Mpho. So yes, your takes are normally very much aligned with what the fans think, and that's why I thought that you're the perfect person to actually have a conversation with. And let's get into it. Basically, guys, as you know, that a new CEO has been appointed, or interim CEO has been appointed. A Kugandrie Govender has been appointed, and so it's a female, and an Indian female that has been appointed. So it's a massive win, I thought, for South African cricket from that perspective. But I knew that from the start it was going to be a very difficult job. So, especially coming in at the time that she did with everything that's happening currently in South African cricket. But Mpho, what was your first thoughts when she was appointed as CEO, interim CEO?
I was very happy. I've had interactions, seen her around the CSA, not necessarily offices, but events and around there. And I thought, she sits on the board. She's the chief marketing officer at the time, and I thought a different face that isn't necessarily that is corporate, but isn't necessarily fully cricket aligned would be the best way to go. And she's Indian female, and I was happy with that, because that's the type of thinking you want. I'm always for different types of ideas coming through the system, rather than just what we've been doing the whole way through with cricket brains taking us through, because cricket brains have led us to this point where our organization is not in the best situation.
We have an awesome interview that she gave before the season launch last season. So guys, go watch that. You can get an understanding of what she is actually like. But this particular story, obviously, this took everybody by storm. There were some YouTubers that also made videos about it. One in particular that made a video about it. And I thought that we need to do this in the right manner and have a proper discussion about it. So let me get into the quotes that everybody's been talking about. So I have some that came on ESPNCricinfo. So obviously, and this is Kugandrie Govender's comments on ESPNCricinfo. So obviously there is a lot of talent sitting in the white pool just by history. And if there is a particular skill that only a white consultant can offer CSA, then obviously we will use them. This is an internal measure for us to check ourselves, because there was no measure before and people did whatever they wanted to do. We need to ask, could you have employed a black person in this position? We are not saying we don't want any white people. We are saying if you want that, you have to go through a process, and if you have specifically proved that no one else can do the job. She went on to say that our problems are not financial. Our reserves remain the same. We would have liked to add to it, but we closed the year on a profit, which I didn't actually know that figures at the beginning. But as she said, that they ended off on a profit. It's a regularity measure that we are saying we are holding ourselves accountable, because in the past we haven't. It is a radical in some sense, but if it doesn't happen organically over the years, and it hasn't happened organically over the years, it wouldn't need to be happening now. It's not ideal. Absolutely not. So she went on as well and kicked off with the Sport 24 article. And especially because there was a sponsor that came out and spoke about it. And I think Mpho is going to give us that statement afterwards. But it was after this message and these quotes that everybody this went completely crazy, and that was, we are not required to enforce black consultants, only African, colored, and Indian until such time as the overall numbers are moving in the right direction, and we can then revise this. The proviso is that this will be the case unless there are no such consultants available at the level we required in order to keep SA at the top end of the world rankings. So, Mpho, let's first start with those quotes. So basically, if I can summarize it for everybody, is that, and I know a bad panda, I can see in the comments talking about this over here. You, the one of the guys that has requested for us to do this, and I'm glad that you came to watch the show, because I mean, we needed to talk about this, and I needed to do it in a proper discussion where we have like an hour. But ultimately, what she was saying is, she didn't necessarily say that she's not going to employ white coaches. She just thinks that, from her perspective, or from what I'm seeing from her perspective, is she's trying to level the playing field. And with regards to transformation, like as in cricket, with transformation with players, if there's a black player and a white player on exactly the same level, they're going to favor the black player. And in the same case is going on here. They don't want situations to happen where black coaches that have the qualifications and the experience are not getting picked over guys that have less experience. What is your take on it? And that's what I summarized from it.
My take on it was, when I read it, I just kind of felt, I thought this was already happening, because in corporate South Africa, that's what happens. If you have a situation where companies in South Africa have to keep a transformation number of black employees, black as across all shades of black, African, colored, and Indian in their organizations, and the hiring policies need to be reflective of that. And so it's a form of affirmative action in picking and selecting a black employees to come into your organization. It felt like it was a reinforcement, because the first question I asked was, hasn't this been happening before? And from my knowledge of CSA has been doing this for a while. So the question then came up from, was this a knee-jerk reaction from they're meeting with the Minister of Sport? And I think that was it. But it was a reinforcement of a policy that happens across South Africa, in corporate South Africa, from as long as I think I could remember. When I joined the workforce in South Africa, I was a beneficiary of that hiring process. And I can tell you now that it doesn't mean that I'm not as great as any white counterparts. It levels the playing field because of the nature of the privilege that our white counterparts get. The reason why this has been coming up is largely because of the relationship type of hiring that's been happening over the past, since December. The Minister of Sport's not happy with what he calls the whitewashing of cricket South Africa. And so this is a reaction to that. It doesn't mean that white consultants are not going to be there. It just gives somebody a test when you hire, to say that you need to fulfill certain requirements for you to hire a white candidate. And one of those requirements is that you need to prove that this is the best person for the job, and you could not find any other black person, which means that when you go out and hire a consultant for a tour, for something else, you need to you need to make it fair. So give a time frame for people to apply with CVs, and you need to look at those CVs, and you also need to report back to the board, and it must be written down in minutes and recorded, the reasons why you selected a white player or a white coach, or not a white player, but a white coach or a consultant. That's all it is. It's you need to show the universe of people that you've chosen. It's to take away the whole bias of, I can select my friends, which is what Graham Smith was accused of when he started, and it makes the process a lot more transparent. So now everybody can see why a certain person was hired, and that's essentially what it is. And I feel it makes the hiring process a lot more optimal, because you get the best candidate for the job, not just the candidate whose father was friends with so and so and so and so, or somebody who was easy to hire because I could call him up on a WhatsApp. Doing that denies a lot of people opportunities, and that's what it is. I wouldn't have gotten my job if we didn't have that selection policy back then, because I don't have the networks. And sadly, the hires that happened in December are as a result of the networks. I don't think they were the most optimal hires, but I do think because of the time frame, they were done in that manner, and the time kind of aided them in pushing things through. Those people in those positions are the best we could ever have, but there were others who may not have had the experience, but they had the qualifications, and those people needed to be given a fair shake. And that's all that Cricket South Africa is trying to do. It's making sure that everybody has a fair shake. Our game is very white, we all know that, and black people need an opportunity.
So Mpho, obviously there was like you could say like a outrage, not really a massive outrage, but people were starting to talk up and showing their concerns for this particular things. I'm going to let you read out the next statement, which comes from obviously AfriForum, which was a company.
AfriForum, Ernst Roots, head of policy at AfriForum, says Cricket South Africa's decision to exclusively hire black consultants can in no way be regarded as anything other than unjustifiable racial discrimination. Forum takes a firm stand against any form of racial discrimination and will therefore take necessary action in this matter. It is concerning that it has become common in some forms for some forms of discrimination to be excused and justified as necessary or positive. These are dangerous and blatant double standards that need to be opposed. And as a civil rights organization, AfriForum will do exactly that.
So I thought that initially was a little bit harsh. I think that the initial article from Sport24 was kind of taken a little bit out of context. I would like to really know what the full conversation was initially, because I don't think that Cricket South Africa would make such a bold statement of racism or show a certain form of racism purposefully or for it to be portrayed in that way. Because a lot of people, obviously, you'll know that someone like Bad Panda says in the comments, he says that I'm all for transformation, but this color situation is beyond me, to be honest. He's the best cricketer we've ever had, and yet. But what I'm saying is, I think that was taken out of context too. I think someone suggested that this is an opportunity for that this might be a possibility of Kallis and of Paul Harris losing their jobs. And the suggestion was made. I don't think I saw anything concrete saying that Kallis is not going to be in a position.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw anything, Paul.
No, nothing was said, and everyone's been picking up from what the wording from Kugandrie said. All Kugandrie said was, for Kallis to be a consultant for the Proteas, Graham Smith must provide evidence that he has scoured the universe of South African black coaches to make sure that Kallis is the best candidate for the job. It's a simple thing for them to say that Kallis is our best cricketer, and that's that. But my point is, for instance, if, let's say, Hashim Amla was available for the job and Graham Smith didn't reach out to him, that would be an indictment on Graham Smith. And that would be, because in the universe of great batsmen for South Africa, you wouldn't necessarily, Kallis stands at the top, and just below him is Hashim Amla. And so if Hash wanted the job, Hash needed to be given a fair opportunity to apply and be considered. And that's all. It's a process thing. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's ensuring that it's an opportunity. And for instance, even Ashwell Prince has played international cricket. Ashwell Prince has batted for Africa and across all these conditions. He's also a domestic coach right now. And this is just an example. I'm not saying that Ashwell should be selected.
Yeah.
He could come in as a batting consultant. It doesn't, but it forces Graham to look and define the role, first of all, and the specs. And in that way, Jacques Kallis, where everybody else who's applied to that standard, because, for instance, the Lions have a great system of incredible black coaches who they just keep on winning. What takes away from Jeffrey Tayana applying to be a batting consultant? Yes, he was a great batsman in his time. He may not have played for South Africa, but he's got something to offer. And so that's the thing that needs to be considered, is that in a country like South Africa, we have a tendency to say that white is right and white is always right. And right now, a lot of white men have played international cricket. So we'll always look to that from a media and a societal perspective to say those are the best guys for the job. However, what about the black guys in the system who've never played international cricket, and their only way to get into the system or get a job as a coach of the Proteas consultants is to get those coaching badges behind them, and they've done so. And so that needs to be considered. It's up to Graham to make the case and prove he's looked at. What he was accused of was he had a small circle. What CSA is trying to say is that open up your circle, get as many people in, and spend time looking at CVs.
And scout, yes. Because, I mean, this particularly the appointment of Paul Harris, when it initially happened, I remember how people spoke about it. It came out of left field. Nobody knew where it came from.
Yeah.
And I thought that a lot of people making jokes, they were saying, for example, I think Keshaf is coaching Harris. A lot of people were making jokes like that on social media, etc. And I was DM'd a lot about those type of things. And I was like, when they trusted initially under Gibson, they took Paul Adams to the spin camp to coach a few of the young spinners. And Paul Adams is arguably our best spinner of all time if you take into consideration from the guys that haven't played anymore. I know a lot of people believe that Keshav Maharaj is getting closer and closer to that. But if you're going to take it, if you want to take the argument of, yes, Kallis was our best batsman, you need to select him as your batting coach because of the way he batted and because of his batting accolades, then the same goes for someone like Paul Adams, I feel, where you're going to take him because of his ability to spin the ball. So there's a lot of those type of things that you can have to take in consideration. I'm not necessarily making appointments right over here, but I just think that there needs to be some sort of fair policy with regards to selecting certain people. There has been some unfairness that has happened with regards to Jeffrey Toyana. We saw the way he was kicked out. He was up for that job. There's an article that I did on our a video that I did on our daily news show or daily show. Go check that out in the playlist where I speak about Jeffrey Toyana, because I remember having a conversation with him back when Russell Domingo was leaving, where he was so certain that he was going to get the job, and then after that, he just didn't get an opportunity. He coached the Lions to some titles. He was doing really well over there, and then all of a sudden he just didn't have a job. He was out of a job, and no one was talking about Jeffrey. But before you get into the next point, Mpho, I'm just going to get Ravi onto the call because he's waiting in the back end here. He really was itching to come on the show. Hey, he even got his whole side part, his hair's going, the glasses on, he's smiling there. Hey, huh?
Yeah, I only aged about 10,000 years. Thanks for leaving me in the waiting room for so long, you know. I was just close to teaching my 3-year-old daughter how to drive. I mean, that's how long I was there. Didn't. How are you boys doing? How are you guys doing, eh?
Oh, good,
Yeah,
man.
no. Ravi, just get straight into it. I don't know how much you've heard of it, but you know about the statements that came out. You know about Kugandrie's statements that she made. Initially, you were also very excited about the appointment initially, yeah. So, what is your thought about this consultants? And I know that with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of white people feel that they're going to be villainized because of this. A lot of them feel that way. I understand that point of view, where they feel that there's going to be massive favoritism with regards to people of color, and that their lives don't matter, etc., etc. And a lot of them don't want to come out and speak about these things. And I can understand the struggle and the difficulty, because I don't think that the Black Lives Matter, from my perspective, in my opinion, and remember that this is a disclaimer that these thoughts are our thoughts, that not the thoughts of Cricket Fanatics magazine as a company. But what I feel is that the Black Lives Matter movement is more of a privileged thing in South Africa than it is of a color thing. Because in the South African sense of the view, the Black Lives Matter movement was not about not about cops shooting black people. I mean, that's initially obviously what happened in America.
The argument is centered around privilege.
The argument is centered around opportunities in South Africa for people of color. So it's a completely different argument to what the Americans are standing for.
Yeah.
That's why it's part of racism in South Africa, and speaking about racism. And all I think people of color want, and whenever you hear them speak about it, it's about having equal opportunity for someone that is white. They want the equal opportunity. A guy like KJ Rabada was given that equal opportunity. He got an opportunity to go to St. Stadions, not on a scholarship, to go there, and because his parents could afford to put him there. A guy like Lungi got given a bursary to go to a top school. to have the same opportunity as someone else has. And that's the point, and that's the level we need to get to. So I know I rambled there, Ravi, but what are your thoughts on the initial comments that we made initially and Kugandrie's comments?
So luckily for you guys, I work within the realm of human resource management. So this is
Here we
something
go.
that I tackled for quite a few occasions over the last 12 years. And I've seen cases of nepotism. I've seen cases where there are plenty of individuals that need to justify certain appointments if they're non-employment equity, right? So for the audience that's not quite aware, when we talk about employment equity, we talk about individuals that are African, Indian, colored, people with disabilities, uh, definitely females as well that were previously disadvantaged in the previous regime because they weren't afforded opportunities, right? And the reason why that's such a huge mandate in South Africa at the moment is that the reality is that for many generations and many decades, this hasn't been addressed. This was always pushed aside. This wasn't a priority. The rest of the world is moving along, and South Africa was lagging behind. And as a result, they left a major gaps in employment as a result of that, from a skills point of view as well as a capability point of view. So that's why these mandates are in place, not because uh, of a political agenda per se. Yes, it's the government and it's the constitution that's driving it, and labor legislation, of course. But it is something that hasn't been addressed for a very long time. Hence the mandate, hence the commercial mandate as well. So businesses are required to adhere to the conditions if they earn a certain turnover per annum, right? Bet you didn't expect to hear that from me tonight, eh, Khalid? No.
We touched on it. We touched on it when you started, but yeah.
No, I know you guys. I know you did. He didn't expect me to say that because he just thought I was a pretty face. But anyways, that aside, so coming back to the cricketing context, and I thought that instead of stating not necessarily the obvious, but stating the stuff which has already been mentioned, I looked at other examples of where this kind of development took place. And very recently, I watched the what's the documentary I recommended to you, Mpho?
All or Nothing.
Not All or Nothing, the one with Australia in England during the Ashes.
Oh, the test.
The test, sorry, of course, the test. And
Good
as an
documentary.
example, what they did very well there was they brought in various individuals from the past, the Australian team particularly. They brought the likes of Steve Waugh, Ricky Ponting, even Matthew Hayden was spending time with the guys in the batting sessions. But the reality is that while Australia came out with a draw, their deliverables weren't met. Okay, during the World Cup setup, they took Ricky Ponting with them, and he's perhaps the most decorated one-day international champion the world has ever seen, and that didn't even move the needle either. They ended up succumbing to a loss to one of the worst South African outfits in a very long time. So the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, we can hire individuals who have stellar records. By all means, we can do that. And there's plenty of guys that we could do that beyond the group that's in the Protea setup right now. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to move the needle. It doesn't necessarily mean that South Africa is going to go back to winning ways. And I changed, I sort of shifted on its head. If you look at the England team as well, they're being led by Chris Silverwood. And I know Chris Silverwood very well. He gave me an autograph 20 years ago because he was on the touring team, English team of South Africa in the 1999-2000 tour. And we didn't see much of him after that. I think he played one more series and that was the end of his international career. Yet he's probably leading one of the most successful English teams, especially after the World Cup. It's understandable that they were led by another individual. But regardless, after 3 test series, they still remain undefeated. They did exceptionally well. They pulled off an away win in South Africa with a relatively young team. And his coaching experience certainly speaks for itself. it certainly translated into these individuals' ability, especially when it came down to selection. On top of that, when they speak about the other thing that I've also picked up on Twitter, because Twitter you pick up pretty much everything you need to know about the situation, right? And,
Good or bad.
and there's a lot of strongly opinionated people. Look, I'm one of those guys. I was excited to a certain extent that Jacques Kallis was getting involved with the team because I felt that his experience will be greatly appreciated. The reality is that if you look at his record, his coaching experience, he had, I think, out of 66 games, there were only 32 victories under his belt in which the Kolkata Knight Riders were successful. So that's a very telling statistic right there. And I'm not saying that necessarily is going to materialize in the South African setup, but that should actually be a huge indicator right there prior to selection. So
Can I
when we're
add something
talking
there,
about-
Ravi, quickly?
Yeah, go for
Just to that IPL thing that you're talking about. I think that me personally, I think it's a bit harsh to judge a coach on IPL performances or on IPL because
But
they have
that's
such a
his
short
only
time with the
experience,
team. Exactly.
That's his only experience. That's the only problem.
It's a very short
That's-
time to be with the team.
Then,
You know.
But then, guys, here's a point. I don't think you need to be a coach to be a consultant. You don't need coaching qualifications to be a consultant, right? But there needs to be a fair way to level the playing fields for those guys who went the coaching route alone and those guys who played international cricket. And I think that's where I think Kugandrie and Cese are trying to figure out, because a lot of people were complaining that people are getting chosen based on this one standard that is afforded to 90% white people. Whereas the rest of the country that's not 90% white, it's actually 90% black, getting left behind from getting skills at that level, at the highest level of coaching. And I think that's why this thing is in there. And I get Jacques hasn't been a coach for much. Yes, he's played the game and there's some things to take away from there. But there needs to be a way in which everyone gets plays on the same level, on the level playing field. Because you can't. So the question I would ask you is, what's the difference between, let's say, Jeffrey Toyana and a Jacques Kallis? You know, Jacques played in international cricket, and he's going to be the one pick always. But Uncle Jeff took Thamito Lekile, made him a great batsman, took a lot of people in that line set up as their head coach and helped them get to the heights. There may have been a bad coach or consultant there, but there's still a lot of knowledge there. And he also has highest level qualification. He's got a level 3 qualification in South Africa. I think he might have level 4. But, you know, so where do we draw the line in a South African context? Because if we want former internationals, that coaching body is always going to be white. That's
the thing. That's exactly it. And
so-
you're quite right there, Mpho. I mean, that Lions setup the Lions team was by far one of the most successful Lions teams they've had. They had a fantastic batting trio in the form of McKenzie, Cook, Peterson as well. And of course, you had Tamiso Lekele, who excelled from 2010, 2011, going all the way to the final year in his career. I think he belted about 400 or 500s during a tenure.
You know, and Bavuma's there. You had so many guys. Anderson came through the system. Quinton was underneath Jeffrey Toyana throughout that system. And that system...
Vian Mulder. That was a massive one. Vian Mulder
as well.
And that system was diverse and embraced diversity. It was. I watched the Jersey Stars last year. It was a practice match they had. And I saw a lot of people speaking Sesotho, Setswana on the field, and it was great, and guys were having a great time. And they win. That team wins. The Lions always... Yeah, even now they won the 4-day competition, and last year they won the 4-day competition. And that's where Kugandrie is trying to get to a point where we all embrace our diversity. But how do we get there?
But
you see,
you actually
with that point,
go ahead.
Sorry,
you go first.
Continue, because I think you're going to talk about these points. So rather, you go first.
No, I was just going to say that Mpho hit the nail on the head earlier, because that's actually a question I would have asked in the world of HR as well. Whenever there was a case of nepotism, we would ask the hiring manager, did you consider all of your options before you opted for a white candidate? And we're not talking about what he did on the field as an international player. Yes, his record speaks for itself. But have you explored all of your options, right? have you looked at every single potential candidate in the South African roster before you even considered a white candidate, let alone an overseas candidate as well? You know, and those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. Has that actually taken place?
You see,
but sorry,
with
Khalid, you were saying.
with the Jacques. Okay, let's explain. So something about the Jacques Kallis appointment when it happened initially. So when it happened, I was actually over the moon about it because of one very reason. Because I was looking at South Africa as a succession plan. Because at the time when Boucher came into the system, it was the exits of a lot of our experienced guys. If we had the likes of still Amla, and I don't know if Fafi's going to stay around still for Test cricket, but especially in Test cricket, our Test team is currently in a revolution phase, or it's currently in a situation where all of our experienced players have left, and we kind of have to rely on a lot of our younger experienced players. And I did a video on this about our culture camp and explaining and breaking it down into different types of players. Because I see Kagiso Rabada and as someone that is, and Quentin Lecoq as someone that is young and experienced. So they experience from international level, but from age perspective of what they've seen in cricket, they're not very experienced from that perspective. But if you look at a guy like, for example, Rassie van der Dussen, who is very experienced with regards to cricket, but unexperienced with regards to international cricket. Now, because of the lack of inexperience or the lack of experience with regards to international cricket, it made total sense to have someone like Mark Boucher or someone like Kallis into a situation, because they can give insights in the dressing room to how the battles are like, what the battles are like, how you're supposed to play Test cricket, certain things. Because as a batting consultant,
the man got a 4-year contract. The man got a 4-year contract. I mean, it's Mark. I get Mark Boucher. He is, for me, also one of the best candidates for the role. But you could, if you're in a knee-jerk situation or you're in a very tight squeeze, and you need to act quickly, give him a fixed-term contract leading up to such time you do a formal process. Don't give the guy a 4-year contract straight away. That for me,
but
is a big red flag.
I'm talking particularly now with regards to Kallis. So he, being a consultant, I don't think he classifies as a batting coach necessarily, because he was termed as a batting consultant to come give insights into the dressing room. There were some times that he couldn't make it because there's such a short period for him to be able to actually make an impact with players. So I watched him and I watched what he did with some of the young players, and a guy like Janneman Malan would tell me that he really enjoyed Kallis's coaching and the way he approached certain things. I was quite shocked. There was actually a picture that you can see in the thumbnail of this video. That was a picture I shot at Newlands. He was standing with his phone, taking a video of Janneman, showing Janneman, sending the video obviously to Janneman afterwards to show him this is what you did wrong, work on this, you work on that. He took a very modern day look at things and the way he wants to address his coaching. So I think as a batting consultant, his experience is something that the players are not going to get from anybody else. The international I can understand when you say international experience doesn't matter when it comes to picking a coach. Some people would say that. But when there's no international experience, when you look around the dressing room and there's no international experience to really talk to, like Dean Elgar, for example, he has international experience, but not for 15 years, 10 years. You're not going to look at a Dale, like a Dale Steyn or Faf du Plessis has, or like Amla would have had. So to give that international experience, you kind of need guys that have experienced it. And I think that's why I thought Kallis was the perfect person for that position.
So this is where I disagree with you on the Boucher hiring, or mostly Ravi, and I agree with you on the Kallis. I felt that Enoch Nkwe needed to be given that opportunity to be the coach of the Proteas. Because he's got the highest qualification, level 4. There's only about 4 guys who've gotten a level 4 qualification. And by your virtue of playing international cricket, you're automatically given a level 2 qualification. So Mark Boucher was on a level 2. He was invited to do a level 3. He didn't do it. But from that perspective, I felt that Boucher and Enoch were equals from a coaching perspective. And I would have given the consultant, that's where I would, if I was Graham Smith, and this is where it'll be abused by this, because the consultant role, you can just say he's played 50 international games for South Africa, and the argument's there. You can pick Jacques Kallis, you can pick whoever you want, because there's nothing specific apart from the fact that you want the players to get that international experience, to get an old head in the room, and it's going to be very easy for Graham to justify this. Out of the fact that if Hashim Amla says you didn't approach me, or even an Astral Prince, or for instance, a left arm spinner in Robin Peterson, who's a domestic coach right now. But that was the way it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
The murmurs that came out of what was going on was that people weren't willing to work as an understudy or as an assistant, or to help Enoch Nkwe as if Enoch Nkwe was the head coach. Mark Bacha was asked before India if he'd take the India head coach or if he'd go as an assistant, and he said no. He wanted it's either you get one job or not.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why this ruling from Kugandrie is so important, because it's going to force people to work with people they don't want to work with, and it's going to provide the most optimal hire. Because the question we should all ask whenever they're anyway, is this the most optimal hire for the side or for whatever organization you're in? And I felt that the hiring of Kallis was optimal, was the best decision you get, and it somehow happened out that he was Graham Smith's friend and it was easy for them to talk and communicate. But if you take it a level back and you look at the coaches of the sides, and even going forward, you cannot rely on previous relationships to make calls, even though that person is a slam dunk. And that's all it is. We want written recommendations. Jacques Kallis needs to write down what he needs to do, and Graham Smith needs to prove in order to go forward. We cannot just take it, because it looks bad. It looks as though it was a coup, that people didn't want to work with Enoch, so we get Boucher in so we can get this wide array of white male former Proteas into the setup to help the setup, because if Enoch was there, they wouldn't want to work with Enoch. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't look good. Not saying that that's what happened, but it comes across as that you are pushing someone aside because he doesn't fit or doesn't look a certain way, even though the man's at the top of his game.
No, absolutely. I mean, Mpho, about 13 years ago, if I had to say in a pub that the next World Cup winning captain in rugby will be a black dude from the Eastern Cape, I think a lot of people looked at me gobsmacked. But here we are. So I completely agree with you. I always felt that the emotion of Enoch Nkwe was unjustified. You're basing it on a 3-0 drumming in India, basically the best team in the world, in my opinion, especially when they're playing at home. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, we started off that tour well, but then we got killed in the end of it. And I don't think it's a reflection on him as a coach. I think it's the way the team was structured at the time.
What shocked me more was the appointment of Otis Gibson. That's what shocked me more, because I was like, if we were going to do transformation correctly, I mean, after someone in Russell Domingo, I mean, when they appointed Otis, everybody looked around and was like, oh, where did this come from? Nobody actually understood where this would come from. You take an assistant bowling, you take a bowling coach from England, and he's not even, he wasn't even a head coach yet, and you bring him over here and you tell him, you need to
He was head coach.
Eh?
He was head coach of the West Indies.
Of the West Indies, of course. But I'm talking about like of an actual team that counts. You know what I mean? But I'm not joking. I'm joking, Ravi. I'm just joking. I'm joking. But
Gents, here's the point, right? As a South African society, especially, we are programmed to say that white is number one. So white will always be best. So the whole quota argument that you're getting black people in, it weakens the side, has ingrained in our society from apartheid days to say that white will always be number one. So number one on the list is a white candidate in hiring in South Africa forever. The next one is a black candidate that's an international. And the last person is a black candidate. We are programmed to put those two above everything else. So when Otis was hired, I sat there going, okay, they were wooed by a black man who's played international cricket, and he's an international, and he trumped the black man who's a domestic coach, and he's won everything domestically, but they felt he wasn't good enough. And that's where we need to change the mindsets. And the only way to change the mindsets is to force people to look at the entire universe and make a call that is unbiased and that is true to what to the information that's presented in front of them. And that's all we want, because the hirings in December were biased. and no one, you can fight me on that, but they were, because there was no transparent process. You can't go back and say these are
Definitely.
Graham considered, and this is where up. It was no Mark's. We all know what Mark's. Whenever someone says we all know Mark's record or someone so and so's record, it speaks of bias. You need to literally write it down and let us know. And that's why that's how Otis got it. It was unfair on Jeffrey, but he was a product of a system and a thinking in our society that makes people think that white is always right and international, secondly, is best.
But you know what's sad about, but you know what's, sorry to interrupt, you know what's sad about the Jeffrey Toyana incident is that he was almost as though after the Lions gig, he was in limbo for a while.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yet
That's
he was,
exactly
he
what
was
I'm
top
talking
of
about.
the Premier League. He was the gold standard from a coaching point of view. And perhaps it's attributed to the fact that we as fans aren't maybe educated enough to understand how the coaching system works.
I wish we could get the truth
how
on
equipped
that.
these individuals are. You know,
I wish we could get the real truth on that. I wish we could get the real truth on that story, because I'm not joking, guys. When I found Jeffrey after the mumblings were happening that Russell was gonna leave his job, and I found him, he told me things off the record, and basically I asked him, can't I ask you about the protest position? But ultimately what we got out of that interview is that he told me that he thought that he was going to get it. Although that's the reason why he left the Lions. I know the last season that he was at the Lions, he didn't do as well, but I think that team was also kind of in a transitional phase with bringing a lot of youngsters into the side. But I mean, like, if you look at a guy like Enoch, in his first season with the Lions, he won a double there, and then he won the inaugural Mzansi Super League. And he played a brand of cricket that was a type of brand of cricket that South Africa wanted to play. So they spoke about, I remember, guys, I will never forget this. I was sitting in the first press conference of Otis Gibson when he was appointed. And he told us about this brand of cricket that he wants to play, this brave, positive brand of cricket. And we were all sitting there and we were like wooed by this, because obviously the accent, and obviously, of course, by what he was saying and by what England was doing. And obviously with him coming from that structure, it links up to what Owen Morgan told us in a press conference when they were here, when they said they want to play brave, confident, attacking, but smart cricket. So what we did wrong is we didn't get the smart part right. So we got everything else right under Otis for regards to the attacking, that ruthlessness, that going after things, don't stay in your shell, try to go for it. But we weren't doing it at the right time. So the smart aspect of it wasn't there. So for someone like Enoch to come there, is kind of, it was my similar type of arguments that I had in the rugby arena when we were talking about the brand of rugby that South Africa wants to play. If they're going to play a backline rugby, or they're going to play a kicking style or forward style of rugby,
please
don't play traditional South African style of rugby.
Don't bring Alistair into this.
No, I'm not going to. But I'm saying, like, it's a similar type of thing. We were talking about the brand of cricket, and Enoch was doing that at the domestic level. So with regards to coaching credentials, with regards to trophies, I mean, he matched Boucher with regards to that. So it was very weird for me to see it that it was the other way around. I thought that initially when Mark Boucher, rumors were going around the press boxes, etc., and around the journalists, etc., I thought that initially maybe he was going to come in and assist Enoch. But then when it happened, it didn't happen that way. So I think what needs to happen is that CSA needs to put in an application process in place where people can actually apply, given their CVs, and apply for the positions like you'd apply for any other CSA position. So
yes, but
I think with the coaching...
Boys, that must be one hell of a carrot that's dangled in front of Enoch right now. To be honest with you, if I was demoted the way he was, I wouldn't have stuck around. So there must be something... I
respected him a lot for his attitude that he had.
His character was
an amazing
attitude.
Amazing character and attitude.
Yeah, and I think they said after 4 years in 2023, he'll be the national team coach. I didn't like that. It irritated me
because he had the role just now.
Yeah, so the agreement that was, it was in a press conference that Enoch will come in after Mark Boucher. It's just that Mark had to be first. And my question was, why does Mark have to be first? Why can't Enoch be first? And that comes out of largely the relationship, because the only difference between Mark and Enoch is that Mark played international cricket. But based on the qualifications that you would apply for in a normal process with a CV and everything else, Enoch's level 4 qualification, and about 4 coaches have that in the country, trumps everybody because level 2 is afforded for the fact that you played international cricket. So Enoch was the no in that situation. He was the optimal hire.
Yeah, but Mpho, but you know, if you're really going to break it down and analyze it, the international experience component of being a coach, right? You don't need to be the coach to give that international experience. So being an assistant coach, he can still add value as an international cricket legend. He can still give that insights whether he was coach or not coach. With regards to being the coach or not, that's got to do with your levels, your expertise with regards to man management, how you build that, how your vision for the future with regards to how you're going to breed youngsters in. Now, that's where I feel Mark kind of edges Enoch because of the time that he's been in the South African system, that he understands domestic cricket and the levels of, and because of this time at the Titans coach, as a Titans coach, you will have a bigger understanding of the domestic game, who were the top performers over the last 3 years.
But you guys are.
But then again, you can also add that experience as an assistant.
Enoch was Jeffrey's assistant at the Lions in that period that Jeffrey was coach. There's a conveyor belt at the Lions that they keep on producing black coach after black coach after black coach.
Winners. They produce winners.
Was, as a head coach of South Africa, Enoch should have been head coach of South Africa now. And Mark Boucher, whoever was had international experience, should have been the guy. Graham should have picked Enoch and given Enoch every single opportunity and chance to succeed under this role. But he didn't go for that one. He went for the easier option, which is Mark Boucher, because the world wants Mark Boucher, because the world appreciates international experience over some guy who they don't know. Because when Enoch was given the India role, everyone was like, who's this guy? We don't know him. And every time the Proteas lost, they kept on saying, well, he doesn't have international experience. The players mustn't be listening to him. And that, for me, is the wrong way to look at it, because at the point, Enoch's the optimal hire. Mark Boucher.
We went to India.
No, I know, I get that. But Mark is a great guy. He's a great hire, but he's not the optimal hire. And that's a problem that's happened in corporate for decades, is that you hire people you know, who you're friends with, who your friend's family is, whoever it is, and everyone will tell me, but Mpho, relationships are the name of the game. A basketball coach got hired because he played with the GM over this past week, but he's never coached a single game in his life, and he's given a championship team and people call white privilege. And everyone's like, no, but he's such a great, we understand that they've played. There's nothing on Mark. It's just that in a country like South Africa, where relationships have denied black people opportunities in the economy for decades, that can't be the one that you fall under. That cannot be, and we want a transparent process, and I'm happy the process is there. So they must write down, and he must let us know. So when we ask him at the press conference who he's hired for under 19 and for the women's team or for wherever it is, he must let us know who the candidates he looked at and he spoke to.
Exactly. And it's a commercial mandate. Every single organization in the country needs to do that. Before Twitter goes crazy saying, but we got high corruption levels and all of that jazz, the reality is that everybody's on the same plane. We need to do that. You have to treat this like a business.
Not all black people are corrupt. Not all black people are undeserving of opportunities. Not all black people are not the greatest. You can look at the domestic coaches we have right now. I think are the best crop of coaches we've always had, and the majority black. Ashwell Prince is doing a fantastic job with that side. Robin Peterson in the Eastern Cape, not a lot of resources, not the greatest of organizations, but he's making it work, producing
definitely.
Guys like it's unbelievable, but they need a fair shake, and the only way they can get a fair shake, and we can get trust in the system, is if the process is transparent. We're just adding
incompetence or ability is nothing to do with a race. It's got to do with your ability as a person. It's nothing to do with your race, whether you're good or not. You have white coaches that are crap. You have black coaches that are crap. You have colored coaches that are crap. You have white. I mean, of course, so that's the situation. And I mean, like, another person that was hard done by was someone like Malibongwe Maketa. Out of nowhere, boom, gone. I think the under 19 position would be a really awesome position for him, a great opportunity for him to really showcase what he's capable of. But that was another thing that went completely crazy. I mean, Shukri Conrad, I think that he was excellent at the Cobras,
and the Titans,
Yeah, so like he's an excellent coach. They put him in charge of the SA emerging sides now, and he's doing a phenomenal job with. If you listen to what those youngsters say about his the way he thinks about cricket and what he does with him, a lot of strong mental players have come through him and at the emerging side. Guys like Reiner van Tonder, listen to what they say about him. Guys like Matthew Breedsky, they have a great relationship. He has a great relationship with a guy like Matthew Breedsky, for example. What they actually say about Shukri and coming through the system over there. So he's doing an amazing job of there, doing the hard yards, getting that experience. I mean, when you talk about experience and trophies won, doesn't he have a CV that is applicable? Isn't he allowed to apply for the job?
And it's not even about applying, because in cricket nobody seems to apply. People keep on getting approached. Graham Smith was approached. There was no, he was approached. There was a group of guys who did it. And back then, if we take this ruling and we take it back about 7, 8, even a year back, we have to look at that at the decisions and the rationale behind Graham Smith. I'm not saying that director of cricket, we don't have a spec. Nobody knows what a director of cricket does on a daily basis.
Exactly. Yes.
But the process needs to be transparent. We want to see who the other candidates were. We want to know what your rationale is. Don't just say Graham's been a captain for 10 years. Yes, he's been a captain. It's great. But is that what set him apart from a guy like Hussein Manak, who never had an opportunity to play international cricket? And now we're weighing things up. And in a country like South Africa, when you start using things like international experience, you're already excluding 90% of the population. And so that's where, for me, I'm happy about this, because it holds everyone accountable. And and the sad part about it was that when Graham Smith came into the job, his transformation credentials were questioned. And people said, no, he understands the system because he played under it. But I would have actually wanted him to show us, without having this regulation or this rule, that he actually believes in transformation. So, for instance, the under-19 role is up for grabs. The SAA coaching role is up for grabs. It should be in the next couple of weeks. We should know who the coaches are. The question is, there are guys you've named already who would be great additions to that side. If they don't make it, we want to see a record of what the universe was of the guys who did. Remember, Ashwell Prince was SAA coach for the England tour. He helped. He sat there in Benoni while he was there. He's a great candidate for
That's right.
And he's played with Graham Smith. I'm sure Graham's got his WhatsApp number somewhere. These are the type of things you need that need to be shown, and that these are the guys we had. We had 5 guys, and with the 5 guys, this is who we picked, and this is the reason why. And I love the test of, you need to prove to us that there was no other black candidate at that level, because that sets the bar wherever Graham Smith wants to set it. So if Graham wants to set it at, I just need a guy to come and be a ball boy, it's not that much, then that's fine. But if Graham wants a world-class guy that's at a level of one of his friends, then he must make sure that he puts that in the spec and allow everyone to apply. If there's 500 CVs, he must look at all 500, and then he must let us know why he selected that person. Because that's what corporate South Africa does. They set the bar very high when they want to hire white candidates, because they know that candidate is the only one who can jump it. And sometimes they'll get CVs where there is a person who's at that level, and that's where the conundrum comes in. And so the system can be gamed if he games it well, but we want fairness. That's all this thing's about.
Yeah, so let me get the question from the comments over here, because some Bad Panda says again, FIFA 19 need to change it to FIFA 20, eh, bro? I thought we were hopefully for 2021. FIFA 21 is coming out soon. I thought we were talking about Jacques Kallis. Can we have a consultant and a coach at the same time? I wonder if that would work.
You can.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm happy with Jacques Kallis being a consultant. I think outside of Hashim Amla, there's no one else, and probably no one else who could do that job better than anybody else, because Jacques, everybody knows Jacques is the textbook. Jacques done a great job with the guys at the Calcutta Knight Riders. He's a great hand to have in the room, and it's an easy explanation. I just feel as though it's not if Graham can't get Jacques over the line, then he's not doing his job properly. That's how I see it.
Another one over here is from Manush, and he's a regular now. Thanks for joining the show. I guess it's international teams. Batting consultant's job is not to teach the batsman how to play the cover drive. Yes, exactly. For the first time, but to execute batting skills in a tough home and away, especially conditions. And that was something that I thought was quite genius. It didn't work out. It didn't work out because it wasn't long enough for the team. But I thought it was quite genius to have someone like they did in India when they got a guy from India. Yeah, and to get him in addition to teach him about Indian conditions, because the problem with South Africa's batting line at the moment, we have a lot of inexperience over there. With regards to Aiden Markham, we saw he struggled against spin. We saw the likes of actually that whole top six struggled against spin, but everybody blamed Markham for some weird reason.
That's the thing.
But
yeah, if the guys aren't applying themselves, you can't blame the batting consultant. I mean, I've been hearing people passing blame from the time Dale Benkenstein was involved. And the reality is that as much as I'd like to throw something at the batting consultant, the truth is that at the end of the day, you need to take yourself to a certain level before he even talks to you. You know?
So here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So with Dale Benkenstein, right? He only played a few internationals, but he wasn't known as the greatest of our batsmen. But he made it in. Whenever South Africa's batting failed, they complained that he wasn't of international standard. And the hiring that happened was because of a friendship with Otis, supposedly. So that wasn't an optimal hire. Had probably Otis thrown the net wider, we could have gotten Jacques Kallis or somebody else who could have helped. I don't know. I'm not saying Dale did a bad job, but if South African society was complaining about Dale Benkenstein, then why not look for an optimal hire?
We had plenty of guys that were involved. I mean, at one point, Neil McKenzie was also involved. And whenever the batting lineup would fail, he's no Kallis. Neil McKenzie was never at that level. The same argument would come into play. We even had Mike Hussey involved in the 2015 season as well. And you know what I'm saying? The guy can talk to you as long as you want him to. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to score 100 on the day. And I think as fans, we need to make peace with the fact that if Kallis watches me bat for half an hour, it doesn't mean I'm going to just score 100. He's going to watch me bat. I think you'll see me more successful with a quarter pounder in my hand.
The players can say a lot of nice things about you. Doesn't mean you can pick the ball out of a leg spinner's hand. You know, it's down to the players at the end of the day.
Yeah. So before I get to the next comment, which I want to mention, Bad Panda, I was just kidding with you. You'll probably whoop my ass in FIFA anyway, so I was just playing with you. But I'm glad to see you back in the comments. But Jessica October said, transparency plus accountability equals transformation. What do you guys say on that? And
I agree.
That's essentially what it is.
100%.
Yes. So we need to hold, and these are the things I think we all need to hold Graham accountable for going forward, is that he needs to be transparent with his hires. And we need to hold him accountable for the transformation targets from the coaching setup down to the players. Those are the two things that we need to hold him. Results, I quite frankly, I have faith in the team. I have faith in him as a former captain, but I don't think that will translate to the team. But what I want is for him to create a pipeline of the current black players in the current system to be able to get opportunities to play international cricket. If they're not up to standard and you think they're not up to standard, you need to figure out ways. And that's why I love the hire of Jacques Kallis, because it forced Jacques Kallis to work with players he wouldn't normally work with. He can work with Aiden Markham any day because it's just 2 WhatsApps and Aiden's got Jacques' number. But he can't work with a Temba because maybe it's not in the same circle. I'm not saying that Temba doesn't know me. He may. But maybe, for instance, a guy like a Wandile Makwetu, who's been seen as to be have a bad attitude, but he's a very great batsman. You know, to get guys like that in the setup for guys to play with and learn from who wouldn't normally get those opportunities is priceless. That for me is the importance of all of it. I want guys like Jacques in the setup. I want the best of the best so that the black players can get those opportunities. The white players will always get those opportunities. They do it in the off season. They get to play in county cricket. They go to play in Australia. They get to do all these but black kids get left behind. And that's the problem. We can't have people being left behind.
That's it.
So guys,
that's it.
I think that's exactly how we're going to end it off. But before, because I want to have questions. A little bit. No, there's no more questions. But what I want to say is to end this off is something very important. So there will be people that will be saying that CSA is in crisis. There's a lot of people that are going to be talking about, especially when this story came out, that they don't want to support the Proteas anymore. The only way cricket in South Africa stays strong is if the fan base stands behind cricket. We as a fan base need to make a difference. We have the power to be able to make a difference in this country when it comes to cricket in South Africa. Whether it is even in a small way, if you're going to down for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in your lunch break to go watch a 4-day game at the Wanderers or or wherever you are at Newlands, even if it is just for 30, 15 minutes, just to give those players some sort of inspiration and hope. I have big respect for our cricketers in this country because they play in front of empty stadiums and have to self-motivate themselves to be able to perform. Because that's literally what it is. I go to games and there's absolutely nobody there. You score a massive 100, probably one of the toughest hundreds that you'd ever score, right? And there's nobody there to see it or nobody there to say anything. But yet we have cricket Twitter that just goes crazy about who should be picked and who should not be picked, and who can, even though they haven't watched a 4-day game in their life. And it's something that we as a fan base need to come together, and that's why I created Cricket Fanatics magazine. It's a platform for everybody to come together that are fans of this game and support our players, learn about them. You can learn lessons from them too. A time for you guys to get to know them better, have some fun, and all of those type of things. So I just needed to say that because I really think that we as a community need to grow, and Cricket Fanatics magazine is your community too. It's not just a business venture. It's also a community that we want to grow, etc., so that we can be a group. I mean, maybe we'll get t-shirts and caps down the line and you guys can get it and we can all be a collective viewpoint. But for now, let's just support our guys.
Girls, man. Come on.
If you want to be my lover.
Oh, God, here we go.
So that's the talk for today. But let's just end off because we've got some football fanatics on this channel as well. So I'm maybe going to release our fantasy league link to everybody so that we can have a little league going for Cricket Fanatics magazine. Maybe that would be an interesting thing for football, for the football fans that are also cricket fanatics as well. But let's just talk about what's happening in the transfer market quickly. Let's just end off with a positive, different note because it was quite a heated debate now. Ravi, you know me and you both Man United supporters.
So shall we hear from the solitary Gunner fan?
So let's hear from you what you think. There was this, I don't know if you saw, Mpho, there was this interview that I told my friend about as well on the Football Terrace. It's a YouTube channel. There's this guy that was talking about, his name is Igal. He was talking about Arsenal, and he was basically talking about Arteta as the Messiah, which was crazy. But anyway, he asked the question, would you take Europa League, right? Winning the Europa League, right? And 10th position, if you could win the Europa League. And he said, yes, you'll take 10th position if you can win the Europa League, which is because of where you guys came this season. So it's a digression. It's obviously you didn't do that well. You go 2 years back.
I wouldn't be happy about the regression backwards, but to be able to get Champions League qualification if your season goes backwards, because you know how these seasons work. If you lose, if you have a bad December, bad November, all of a sudden you're out of the top 4 and you're chasing. And there's some very good teams. So I agree. I can understand why he'd take a Europa League win. And that gives you a doorway into Champions League and gives people your club an opportunity to attract a lot more signings. That I get, because I think we've struggled to attract the big names, largely because we don't want to spend money, but also because of the fact they're playing on Thursday night. Nobody wants to play on Thursday night and play on Monday. But yeah, I don't think Arteta's the guy for right now, and I think he can build something in the next 4 years, and then we'll have to reassess 3 years later as to whether he gets a longer contract. But it's tough because you don't know if he can pull these results over an entire season. Unai Emery started like this. He's Emery in terms of his tactics, but the way the results have gone are similar to what Unai Emery did, and so you kind of need a fuller season to be able to see whether he's the guy for us going into the long term.
Okay, so let's pick our top 4s. Honestly, where it stands. Okay, I think we're gonna have to say where it stands right now. So we can't say, oh, if United buy
For the
Sancho,
Premier League.
if United,
as it
obviously
stands
for the
right now.
Premier League.
Because I don't know, Barcelona is looking pretty good right now. I believe they made a hell of a signing by the name of Lionel Messi.
But I mean, like, if we can't say if United signs Sancho or if United signs whoever or if City signs whoever, based on the signings that happen right now, where every team is at the moment. What is your top four? So I can go first if you want me to.
Okay.
I think City. I think City will come first this year because I think they're hungry and they've added additions to their squad. I think Liverpool will struggle. We'll be on the same level. So for them to take it to the next level, I think they need to make Alcantara signing will obviously take them to, I think, to a different level because that was their only weak spot. I think the last season is their midfield. I think that's the weakest part of the team, to be honest with you. Because I mean, someone like Roberto Firmino plays that style of football, man. He suits that style of football. So people would say strikers, but I don't think so. I think that it will be City first, Liverpool second. And this is going to pain me to say, but Chelsea third if they can get all their signings to gel. And I think United will come fourth with the current situation that we're in. That would be my top four.
Okay. I think mine are my top three similar to you. I think City are still the best team in the land, regardless of what happened last season. They're just incredible. Liverpool will take.
Liverpool fans are loving you right now.
No, I know, but look, guys. They need to stop this highline nonsense, first of all. They tried it again on Saturday. They got punished. They want
to play like Bayern Munich.
Dude, like, I was watching us. I'm like, guys, no. This is how you play. We've been through highlights.
Don't say that. Let him play the highlight.
And
United press is going to dominate them.
And the whole midfield thing, they need to strengthen in the midfield. And we have a YouTube show called The Cheap Seats that talks about Premier League stuff, but we'll talk about it on as well. And then I think Chelsea with their signings, not if they gel, with their signings, they look like a number 3. The number 4 for me is between Arsenal and Manchester United, and both those sides can actually move up based on the way they play. The way in which
it's a jump for you guys, man.
Huh? It is, but guys, if you think about it in the bubble, we only lost to City and Spurs, but we took out what's that team? Liverpool. And there's another team we beat towards the end of City again.
United
also,
as well.
You beat City, yeah.
Yeah, we also who was the guy in the FA Cup final? I don't even know. It was Chelsea. Yes. And that showed a difference in approach and style, and a much more pragmatic approach compared to Wenger, who was quite attacking, and Unai Emery, who was super defensive. So I think Arteta's got something cooking. I'd say Arsenal will probably end up at 5, with Manchester United at 4. But that's how I think I see the season. It's just
what about Tottenham, guys? Remember, Tottenham missed Kane and so many key players last season. If they have everybody,
Tottenham is a big one, eh?
It'll be dangerous.
Like Tottenham's biggest weapon is Jose
Especially
Mourinho.
because they're opening 3 fixtures. Guys, they're opening 4 fixtures or 3 fixtures are like crazy. They're opening 5 fixtures that can get at least like full points. Like, I mean, I think they're playing. Who they're playing? They're playing a big team. I think one big team, but other than that, they're playing weak teams.
Look, Spurs will
Ravi,
always be like that's how I know them.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Personally, I would agree with Mpho. I think City have got the firepower necessary. Pep is just a brilliant coach, as much as it pains me to say that. And it'll be very presumptuous to tell you who's going to win it. But I think top 4 will be City, Liverpool. Will be a repeat of last season. I'm going to say Chelsea at a possible 3, United 4, and I think Arsenal will climb up the ranks slightly, and you might see a significant improvement from Tottenham as well. So 4, 5, and 6 will be United, Arsenal, Tottenham. So you got your 2 London clubs there. And the surprise package, and I'm going to say because you guys didn't give me much of a chance to speak today. The surprise package will be
what?
Will be. No, I'm talking nonsense. The surprise package will be Leeds, in my opinion.
Yes.
How do you pronounce it? Is it Bielsa?
They play a bloody good style of football.
Marcelo. Bielsa.
I actually
Bielsa.
I did a lot of homework on him specifically. I watched the last 3 seasons or so, and this guy stuck it out. They made wholesale changes. They committed to more or less same structure, and it's paying off dividends. I think they're going to put a dent in this league. I'm not saying they're going to come top 10 or top
You
5.
think like
or
a
whatever,
Sheffield
but
United type of dent, or
I think a Sheffield-ish. Definitely, I think they in the Wolves category, in my opinion. Wolves, Sheffield United.
nah?
I think you're going to see a lot of.
No, we'll
And
know in that opening game. That opening game against Liverpool, we'll know.
No, they will lose that opening game.
Yeah, but we'll know. But we'll know what style of football they're gonna play. Like,
No, look, they Bielsa is very normal 4-4-2. He likes to play with a second striker. They're very strong defensively, and his wing backs do the job. They have to do the job in that system. He's gonna be very tight defensively. He's probably one of the best coaches Messi's had at Argentina, outside of Maradona. And if Leeds had money, Messi would be right now at Leeds. If they had cash and they were a top team in Europe, Messi would be there, because Bielsa is probably the only other guy that Messi would want for him to coach him at club level.
yeah. So, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I think it's time for us to say goodbye. So, thanks a lot
But
for you guys.
don't
for
you want to
tuning in.
speak about Messi for a bit? I'm sure Vinny Barnes
Nah.
must be wondering if he's coming to Manchester City at some point.
He's not coming
Vinny,
to.
are you watching us? Are you
What did
watching
he
us?
confirm?
Next season. We'll see.
Season will go for
Next
free.
season.
Next season will go for
He
free.
must
And
hand
United's
him
going to buy Ronaldo. That's what's going to
By the
happen.
time the brother is like 50, he'll be ready to play for City. That's what I think is going to happen.
So, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Please click the notification bell so you can get notifications of all the live updates that we have and all updates that we have, etc., etc. Guys, tomorrow's a massive day. It's the next issue of the magazine that we're launching. I worked blooming hard in the last couple of weeks to get all those articles polished and ready for you guys. Some great content. It's about the Vision 2023 and looking into the future of South African cricket from the women's perspective and from the male's perspective. So, guys, get that issue, subscribe to the magazine, and you'll get an email to the next issue of the magazine. Thanks a lot, everybody, for watching. We're going to have another episode of, obviously, our podcast shows will continue. Obviously, with regards to every Sundays, we'll have your Legends with Ravi. We'll have your Square Leg Gully. We'll have a very exciting interview tomorrow. Stay tuned to our Twitter. Stay tuned for that. It's very interesting, very different spin on things, but you'll see the tweet that goes out tomorrow. And yeah, that's it from our side. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Mpho. Thanks for Ravi for coming on. And we'll see you guys very, very soon. Cheers, guys.
Good night.
Cheers.